All right, so we could be nearing a space in time in which crypto regulation could be at its worst risk ever. And that's going to talk about a breakdown of a lot of things that are happening all at once right now, starting with the Speaker of the House. We'll break into all this good stuff. You guys don't want to miss this one. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. All right, well, let's start with where this rub between Matt Gaetz, Kevin McCarthy, Speaker of the House. If you know anything about politics, basically you got a good guy, a bad guy. One guy said, I was going to do this, he didn't do it, and it all kind of boiled up to this shutdown that we just averted. Listen to what they had to say here. This is leading out with Matt Gaetz.
If there's a deal made with Democrats, the only deal is to make one with McCarthy, because I'm not offering anything and won't offer anything. So if the Democrats want to adopt him, they can adopt him. Declaring the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives to be vacant. Resolved that the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives is hereby declared to be vacant.
The vote has to take place within 2 legislative days. We don't know exactly when that's going to be.
Have you talked to anyone to gauge their interest on becoming Speaker if McCarthy?
I've had a number of people call me sua sponte to express their own interest.
Really? Can you name it?
I could, but I'm not going to.
Will you block or vote against every Republican rule if he remains Speaker?
I haven't contemplated that.
All right, so Gaetz has definitely got a burr under his saddle for McCarthy. And mainly this, again, goes back to this whole broken promises scenario that happened when McCarthy was put into the speaker position. Now, why is this important to crypto? This could cause a massive slowdown in regulatory alignment with what's going to happen around, because right now we're talking about pushing back out of October. This is going to have a lot of effect, and then you've got other things playing into this. So stick around, because this whole video, we're going to break down all these little things that you need to be paying attention to, because it will have some significant impact here. A couple of things from this article right here. Let me go to the headline here. Matt versus Goliath, now a nuisance has become a mortal threat to Kevin McCarthy's speakership. A couple of points I want to highlight here. If all Dems vote against the speaker, Matt Gaetz would only need the support for 4 Republicans, which he is likely to get. That would be the scenario that would oust the Speaker of the House right now. So, and as you heard in the clip, it's going to happen in the next couple of days. So pretty big deal. Democrat Jared Moskowitz, who has known Gaetz for over a decade and served him with Florida, obviously Gaetz out of Florida legislature, used an analogy from Avengers movie, and the House had come to an Armageddon. We're also kind of here because McCarthy gave Matt Gaetz the Infinity Stones, and now, what a surprise, Matt Gaetz is trying to snap his fingers and make him go away. It was inevitable. I thought this was fun. Anyway, point being, we've got a lot of disagreement in D.C., and unfortunately, crypto legislation is going to get caught up in this. And I think that's the concern we have to look at. I want to go to this next clip, really breaking down McCarthy's position as opposed to what Matt Gaetz had to say. Listen in.
Speaker, what are the Democrats asking you for? As you try to build support, I imagine, from Democrats in this case, I imagine they're going to try to drive a hard bargain.
You know what? They haven't asked for anything. I'm not going to provide anything. He's been blaming me for an ethics complaint against him that happened in the last Congress. I have nothing to do with. He wants me to try to wipe that away. I'm not going to do that. That's illegal. If that's the case, then I think we've got real problems.
He says he's coming for you. Can you survive?
Yes, I'll survive. You know, this is personal with Matt.
Democrats could cross over and follow Gaetz's lead on this.
Yeah, look, Gaetz is trying to work with Democrats. He's reached out to Swalwell, to AOC, and others. But if that's the way we're going to govern, I don't think America is going to be successful. Look, most of it in the press probably thought we would have shut down yesterday, too. But no, we did not.
Were you confident we wouldn't shut down?
I was confident I could get something on the floor to make sure the option that we would not.
But
that
you
our
weren't sure it was
military.
gonna pass.
Well, I wasn't sure it was going to pass. You want to know why? Because the Democrats tried to do everything they can not to let it pass. They did dilatory.
Democrats were the ones who voted for this in a larger number than Republicans. Okay, 90 Republicans voted against it. You got 45 days.
That's right.
All right, so 45 days in loom around another government shutdown. The other thing that plays into this, he's calling more of a personal sense situation. But I want you to think about this right now. This is basically infighting within D.C. lawmakers. But unfortunately, this is happening at a time in which really crypto has a vulnerable situation brewing, and that is the FTX trial. So let me go to this clip right here, breaking down what kind of impact FTX is going to have right now. Listen in.
Jury selection in the criminal trial of Sam Bankman Fried kicks off at 9:30 a.m. in a Manhattan federal court downtown. Now, Bankman Fried, who, remember, has been sitting in jail since August after having his bail revoked for alleged witness tampering, faces 7 criminal counts related to the implosion of the crypto empire that he built. So we're looking at a 6-week trial with prosecutors expected to take a month to make their case. We don't yet know whether Bankman Fried will testify. His lawyers have hinted at an advice of counsel defense. That's where they would say that he was following the guidance of FTX lawyers and didn't realize that what he was doing was illegal.
All right, so interesting stuff there. The point being is, again, it starts to roll up on this. I want to kind of butt this with another clip to it that kind of helps paint the picture a little bit better. Listen in.
What do you think it means longer term for crypto? We were talking about the price of Bitcoin has actually moved a little bit higher, not as it relates to this, as it relates to the fact that maybe the government's going to stay open, and relates to this comment that Gary Gensler made that had the government shut down, there'd be no chance of a Bitcoin ETF. I don't know if you think there's any better chance that there's a Bitcoin ETF now that the government's open.
Crypto is a technology. Let's see that technology in our financial ecosystem in a place where we're confident it's totally safe. So I believe that stablecoin, a well-constructed, well-regulated stablecoin, is one of those places. I also believe that we've decided every legal question around Bitcoin that is relevant. So as I've said before, that would make you think that a Bitcoin spot ETF is inevitable.
All right, so that was Jay Clayton. That's the former chair of the SEC. And he's right. I mean, these are the kind of things that most normal people would look at. Obviously, we know there is an agenda in the SEC that aligns with what is happening mostly with Senator Warren. But Jay Clayton goes on further to talk about what it would take for securing the crypto market in general. Listen to what he had to say about that.
I was very concerned that the trading of Bitcoin around the globe on exchanges that we had no insight into had a large amount of fraud going on.
Right.
And I was not comfortable, and the staff at the
By the way, you were proven right.
Yes.
Okay, so now what's changed since then?
So there are a lot of people who do surveillance and the like who are confident that the Bitcoin spot market is what I would say has much greater efficacy than it did 3 or 4 years ago. Well-respected financial institutions, new financial institutions or new financial providers have submitted to the SEC. They lay out the case for why trading in spot Bitcoin is more efficacious than it was in the past.
So I think he hits on something that's very important right there, and that is that Bitcoin itself has evolved. The efficacy that he's talking about is the quality level of the institutions now that reside in the market. So it's going to be important, this, as we get into a role of where the SEC comes in and says yes or no to a Bitcoin ETF. All those kind of things have to play out. The other thing, of course, that plays into that is the institutional connection, which also gets into the regulatory front, which goes back to the front of the video, and that is, why are we going to potentially see some slowdowns here? I want to go over to Watcher Guru. Says 1 month before the FTX collapse, Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary said some things. Now listen to what he had to say, and I'll explain how Kevin O'Leary is stuck in this, because you might just know him on Shark Tank. Listen in.
If there's ever a place I could be that I'm not going to get in trouble, it's going to be at FTX.
All right, so that was his, and it's kind of clipped out of context, but the point was Kevin O'Leary was a big proponent of Sam Bankman Fried, primarily because of his mostly sponsorship deal with Kevin O'Leary, and there was a lot of money that was at stake here. So he was pitching his own book like anybody that is sponsored by a major corporation like FTX at the time. Most of these people didn't know what was going on. Tom Brady was in this. There was many that were in this. So it's not necessarily a bad thing on O'Leary. He played it a couple of times a little bit bad because, but hey, listen, that's the character he plays on Shark Tank. So I don't know that you would expect anything else. Let me play this next clip with Kevin O'Leary on FTX and regulation now. Remember where he came from, and listen to this.
But I tell everybody, remember, think about Lehman Brothers or Bear Stearns or Enron. They change nothing long term. And FTX will come and go, and it won't make a difference to the potential of what crypto could be. There was so much optimism only 3 years ago. But what was missing was regulation. While we've had all of this chaos going on in crypto, the only bill that's surviving scrutiny is still moving forward in Congress on the Hill is a bill around stablecoins. Now, if you mistrust government, Well, I guess you can just keep gold bars in a cave with some beef jerky, a dog, and a rifle. But that's not for the majority of the economy. It's not useful and not easy to operate that way. The potential of what crypto can be is huge, and I believe it will find its place, but only after it's integrated into financial services in a different way than it is today. In other words, regulated.
Now, many of you may look at that and say, "Oh my God, Paul, we don't need regulation. We don't want regulation. We're going to continue to kind of be this Wild West show." But the reality is, for the world to move to blockchain, for us to really see the next evolution of the internet, for all of this to take place, regulation is going to happen. Now, the question is when. Hopefully, we get it in this cycle, meaning this particular session of what lawmakers are in today, because we have two bills: the FIT bill and the digital asset bill, and the stablecoin bill that O'Leary was talking about. But he did mention that the FIT bill didn't necessarily survive, but I think it may. So that in itself, I think, is a huge step in the right direction. He kind of mentions that. Problem is that some of this is now at risk. Now, you've got the biggest player out there in the market, and I want to talk about Jay Clayton first and what it's going to take to get crypto regulated, because this is the guy, remember, that used to lead the SEC. So he knows exactly the process that is going to help this take place. Listen into this clip.
This trial at a macro level demonstrates how important our regulatory environment is. No commingling of funds, customer assets are segregated. All of those things are designed to prophylactically prevent what is alleged to have happened here.
Well, yes, but the other piece of it is that this was a company that was doing its entire business offshore. Interestingly, one of the things that's happened because we haven't figured out how to regulate crypto, and this is an argument somebody like a Brian Armstrong would make from Coinbase, you're looking at them open up businesses elsewhere, right? They're now doing a lot of business in Europe. They're trying to do business in other countries, in large part because we haven't really figured out what this is supposed to be.
All right, so he's kind of touching on Coinbase there a little bit, but the point being is, FTX's real scenario was an offshore company that obviously had U.S. customers, but at the same time was doing these nefarious scenarios, and they got caught. And that's a good thing, because now we've got at least some sort of liability that FTX is going to now face in courts. This could actually end up being a good thing, but it's going to be a narrow sliver of opportunity here to really spin this. And I'll get to that in a minute, but he mentioned something about Coinbase that is important, because Coinbase is the biggest exchange in the land. They are the BlackRock of crypto. And if you look at what they're doing, Coinbase is pushing abroad, getting steam, but a lot of uncertainty. Remember, they still have a big lawsuit here with the SEC. Right now, their announcement this week has secured a regulatory license in Singapore. I think I retweeted that. US-based crypto exchanges, international push, continue to go out there. It makes sense for Coinbase to lean into international initiatives given the still heightened regulatory risk in the US. I don't think this is going to be a long-term play, but if you look at strategic moves by Coinbase, this is a natural evolution of Coinbase. Even if we had regulation, these guys would continue to expand internationally. So this is only setting up, and it's not even a safety net for Coinbase. This is just their strategic, I think, business plan and roadmap to get out there and get into some of these Western markets where Binance has been kicked out of and or is leaving these gaping holes. So there is some opportunity here for Coinbase as a whole. I want to go over to what all of this means, because you've got the fight in DC that could slow down Congress. You've got Congress already at odds with each other, and you have the lawsuit and the trial going on now, all at the same time. How does this affect crypto? Let's go over to the Blockchain Association and listen to what Ron Hammond had to say. Listen in.
But Coinbase really has stepped up and said, look, the fight's here in DC. We are committed to the United States, and we're committed resources here in the United States and DC to educate Congress, to educate regulators, and to showcase in DC why crypto is important for the future of the United States. And so the plan was, hopefully, was after this whole shutdown drama that we would have a vote probably, again, October, but it's looking more like November now. The closer we get to that 2024 election, again, we're almost a year out, all of a sudden, bipartisan politics goes away and folks start retreating back to their bases, and it's my team versus your team. And that's when everything grinds to a halt in DC. We're already seeing that right now a little bit with the shutdown, where folks are saying it's my team versus your team, but the Republicans are a lot more splintered on their teams.
All right, so that's the scenario that is playing out, and we've kind of explained that. But the question would be, what is our best hope, for this to actually happen? Because we were thinking, even our research team and ourselves were thinking that October was the win month or the no-win month, and it looks like November could actually be the month where this is going to come in. Let's listen to what Hammond had to say about whether or not this does happen in terms of best hope. Listen in.
Now, there have been some rumors going around recently. Again, Politico reported on it, Punchbowl reported on it recently too, that Patrick Henry gave an interview saying, look, the Senate Bank Committee, my Senate counterpart, they're doing completely different things than we're doing in the House. We're focusing on crypto and capital formation and data privacy. They're more focused on marijuana banking, exec compensation, and banking regs. So we are in two different camps on two major different issues. But if we were able to, make a trade of some sort, but this does provide a pathway potentially for crypto legislation to move forward to the president's desk. Again, a lot has to happen. A lot can mess this up. But this is one of the first few times we're seeing kind of a light at the end of the tunnel.
All right, so he's right. There are some things that are on the floor right now that could be offered up in exchange for a crypto vote, especially a stablecoin vote. So there is, and to his point, there is a window here. It's a narrow window, but the other pressure you have is this FTX trial. This could actually blow up in our face. And that's a concern. If you look at that, this was a tweet by Ron, who's just in the assessment of what people said, hey, it's the worst possible time for crypto as a lobbyist and position right now just because of the SBF situation, which this could get really crazy. I guess, fortunately, it's not televised, because if it was, I think we'd end up with a Depp Amber Heard kind of scenario, and that would give us the kind of publicity that we don't need. But at the same time, this is also going to give us a lot of, I think, flight under the wings of how Congress is going to perceive crypto, because they're going to be hearing all of what's happening within this case. I want to go to this last clip here with Ron Hammond that says, all right, what if we could spin this? If there is a possibility, and this is where you guys can help. I'll talk to you guys about that in a second, but listen in.
And so we've seen FTX kind of being pulled in two different directions when it comes to supporting or opposing legislation. And so our concern is, of the 300 plus members of Congress who have not sat in a crypto hearing ever before, who may not even know what Bitcoin or Ethereum is, are they going to listen to the headlines and say, look, actually, SBF is all crypto, which we all know it's not the case? Or are they going to say, SBF did this fraud? That's why we need to pass legislation to make sure this doesn't happen again. And so we're trying to really thread that needle.
I think that's the question that has to be answered. And that is how lawmakers perceive this. Do they perceive this as, this is what can happen with no regulation? We're going to continue to see cowboys out there do these kind of things. Not anything against cowboys, but the point being is that this could fall on the positive side. Now, the way that you guys can help is just go over to standwithcrypto.org. Again, they're not a sponsor. Coinbase don't ask us to do. We're doing this kind of as a public service announcement to help everyone really get your awareness, one, out in front of your own lawmakers. So you can go in and actually, email and or call, just, hit in there, join the fight. But there's a very key thing here. And I think you could also add something, that little script that'll pop up, and just simply say, FTX is a problem that could have been solved with regulation. Simple statement that would immediately help your congressman, hopefully, get a little bit of a bird in their ear to understand that's the real problem. No regulation, we're going to have things like this happen. That's the key that we have to really fight forward for on all of this. Okay, so if you guys are not part of the Diamond Circle, make sure and jump in. It is one of the best places for additional content. We've got a podcast over there, some additional TA videos coming in to break down projects as we start to lean out of this bear market. Make sure and don't miss that. Just click the link down below. You can join for free. And of course, if you guys want to catch me out there on X, it's @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on Tech Back.